You're watching Capital Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
The Republican frontrunner in the primary race for governor joins us now. He's Gary Rabine, hopes to become Illinois' next governor. And I have to start with this. Your wardrobe choice is an interesting one. Can you help us know? I don't know if we've ever seen this color pattern on the set of Capital Connection. What's going on?
You know, I've never been one to match very well. I know, bright red, bright orange don't match too well, but it's really good for snow plowing and shoveling snow. And so I came down towards Springfield because we checked on some accounts in our snow business. And on the way down, we knew we had to come down to Springfield and shovel in front of Abe Lincoln and a couple other things. So we had some fun the last 20 hours, I'd say.
Central Illinois has been covered, pummeled, blanketed in snow, and you, working in the asphalt and paving industry,
and snow,
are familiar with all this.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get right to it. What did you make of Governor Pritzker's State of the State and Budget address? This is his fourth time doing this, the last in his first term. He's running into an election year, and he had a lot to say. What were your takeaways?
So my biggest thing is I feel like he's out of touch. He's out of touch with working class people and what matters to us. I saw some cuts that sounded pretty good, but when you dig into them, they don't feel that good to normal people, in my opinion. You're
talking about the tax freezes on grocery and gas, the rebates on property taxes. That's
correct.
A little something is better than nothing, no?
Yeah, it is. But I mean, if you look at property tax, we're the second highest in the country. I believe we may have moved into the first highest when I look at a lot of information. But either way, second highest in the country, two to three times more than our surrounding states. And to take a couple $100s off for everybody, it just doesn't do it justice. I mean, I believe we have to have real reform in property tax to make a difference for property owners in Illinois.
That's interesting. Governor Pritzker addressed that in his speech. Let's take a listen.
Local property taxes have long been an unsustainable burden for homeowners across Illinois. Local governments who impose property taxes have received an unprecedented influx of cash from the federal government in the last year, and an additional $1.1 billion in annual support due to the actions taken by the state. It's time for every local taxing district to take a long, hard look at reducing the burden of high property taxes they impose on their local residents.
He's sort of pointed the finger at local governments who have made those decisions over the years to slowly ratchet up the property tax pressure. Do you agree with Governor Pritzker on that?
No, I don't. I mean, I look at the state has mandated so many things that cost local communities a lot more money that shouldn't be there. When I think about the state, in many cases, the state takes on a lot more of that burden. We take on very little of that burden for schools and local taxes. So I think it's a combination. Do the local communities have to look at it? Of course they do. But I think as the leader of the state should be the first one in to really dive into what we can do to fix that.
And you alluded to state funding more for education, which since 2017 we have done $350 million more on top of the growing pile of state education funding. That's the biggest driver of property taxes at the local level, is funding the school districts. So let me ask you this question. $350 million extra plus $54 million extra for early childhood education. Good idea or a bad idea?
I believe it's in the wrong direction. I believe
spending more on state education.
There's other places we could fund those local communities. And early childhood education, I'm not a fan of. Number one, I think there's a lot of money spent there. I think parents need to raise their own kids, and our government shouldn't be raising kids.
What does that mean when mom can't go to work, or when the household can't pay the bills? They have to have two incomes to make ends meet.
Yeah, no, I think that families figure it out. I mean, to raise kids from childbirth into kindergarten, I think is the responsibility of the parents, and that's something I believe in.
Okay, so I want to be clear. You don't believe in spending more on early childhood education, but on that $350 million in K-12, which was a bipartisan agreement, Republicans and Democrats in this building agreed, we got to start spending more on local education. Good idea or bad idea?
I think it's a good idea, but in the way it's done here, where we continually give raises and coddle the teachers' unions to give them more money, it's not the right way to do it, in my opinion.
The teachers' minimum wage was recently set at $40,000 a year, I should say. We haven't quite reached that yet. I believe in 2023, if memory serves. You think that's too much?
I think the cost of the pension is too much. The wages, I think, are reasonable overall, but when we look at the pension system and where we're at, it's got to be addressed eventually, or our pension system is going to crash, in my opinion.
You mentioned the pensions. Governor Pritzker said on top of the $9 billion roughly we'll spend on pensions in his budget this year, he wants to add $500 million, $500,000 to that, which is akin to paying down your credit card bill more than the minimum monthly payment to garner about $1.8 billion in savings down the road. Good idea or bad idea?
I think we need to really look at restructuring the pension system. If we don't look at the future of this pension system, our promises can't be kept. And that's
is that singular decision in this year a good idea?
I don't like it. That's not something I'm a fan of.
You wouldn't pay down more than the minimum?
Let's go into the other things that you talked about as far as gas tax and the other things. We look at, he's talking about 2 cents a gallon.
I want to be clear on that. You wouldn't pay down more than the minimum required on the pensions?
No, I mean, I think we have to, but we have to make sure that we're actually addressing the future. Besides just continually paying on a bad system is not a good idea.
The ramp is going up. We're going to have to. It's going to chew into our state budget as we get closer to that 2047 deadline.
Absolutely.
Which can be extended. So, okay, how do you get at the pension system? Do you extend the ramp? Do you change the Constitution? What do you do to get at Illinois' pension problem?
Depending on the structure of government, when we win, there's a lot of ways to go at it, right? To go deep into that is not a good idea. I mean, whether it's changing the future to a 401k, right, so that we protect the promises made.
So phase out the pension system?
Phase out the current pension system for future, right?
For all new state employees that are hired after a certain date.
Correct,
So just
correct.
you're talking about a fix that would take 50 years to implement.
It'll take a long time before it actually balances out to where we're competitive again on our cost of pensions compared to other states. But we got to do something to get better rates, to get better interest rates from our bondholders. You have to do something to go in the right direction, right?
It's always interesting because I think the pension problem is the single biggest long-term headache any governor has ever faced in Illinois.
Absolutely.
If you can go back 120 years and find headlines about governors who are wrestling with this issue. There are a lot more immediate challenges that executives face in office.
Sure.
You've not held public office before. So hypothetical questions can sometimes help us give an idea of how you would handle problems. Let me start the question this way, because I think you've been critical of the governor's handling of the coronavirus. He just campaigned, basically, in his speech on leading the nation in crisis management, leading the state through a crisis. He thinks that's a strong point for him. You disagree.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, though. When you look at CDC data, this is not state data, this is CDC data, Illinois has a much better mortality rate through the pandemic than all of our Midwestern neighbors. Fewer people per 100,000 died in Illinois during the coronavirus than all of our surrounding neighbors. How do you explain that?
Fewer people or fewer people per capita?
Fewer people per capita, which is the way to measure this, right? You wouldn't just say fewer people in a state of 12, 13 million compared to Iowa. You would look at per capita, right?
Yeah, so I look at the nation as a whole. We're not performing at the top when it comes to that. So you look at Florida, per capita, better.
We're per capita deaths, mortality rate, Illinois beats the pants off of Florida.
When it comes to you look at the average age compared to us, older average age, and they're very similar if we look at this.
Illinois has a pretty high senior population. We don't have a retirement tax here in Florida, or in Illinois. They don't have any income tax in Florida.
Yeah.
So you're saying that
we're much younger than Florida.
As an overall, we do have a high senior population in Illinois.
So add that in, add the difference in age, I think you'll find that we're very similar in death per capita.
I didn't hear an answer in there, though. How do you explain Illinois beating the other states in the Midwest? We're right here in the middle. We have more people, but we had fewer people die per capita.
I don't look at it as beating when we have 122,000 people leave our state because we're abusing businesses and our taxes are the highest now.
Do you believe that figure, that census estimate, that guess that they put together?
I believe it's well over 100,000, whether it's 110 or 122,000, it's well over 100,000.
How come then over the last decade, every one of those estimates that predicted these wild out-migration numbers were proven wrong when they had the hard count of the census and the data? They said, oh wait, whoops, we only had about 10,000 people leave over the course of a whole decade. You think 10,000 over a whole decade all of a sudden shot up to 100,000 in 1 year?
So I'm not sure on the 10-year, because I looked at the 10-year too. I'm not sure how they came up with that, but we're looking at 50, 60,000 jobs leaving. With that, you're going to have family members leaving, right? So if that's the case, 110 is probably, 120,000 is probably reasonable if we lost that many jobs, right? So I mean, I think just no matter what, it's not a good thing to lose. It's not a good thing for our population to go down instead of up. I mean, we can't continue to tax at the highest rate in the country and think people are going to stay and put up with that, right? So I think we've got to address that. We've got to address one of the highest property taxes in the country. We've got to address this gas tax, second highest in the country, and he's proposing 2 cents a gallon that we won't add to it this year.
It was one of the lowest gas taxes in the country for, if you look at just the motor fuel tax, it was one of the lowest in the country. And stayed low. It hadn't been raised since I think 1993 or 96, and it stayed so low that roads and bridges were going without the funding they needed.
Since the raise, and I'm an infrastructure guy, I like infrastructure, right? So since the raise, in 2020, it showed there were 21 out of 50 states. We're 21st highest.
So middle of
right?
the pack.
We've moved now to the second highest, right? Either way, we got to be competitive as a state if we want people to stay here, if we want jobs and business to grow here.
And Illinois was graded the #1 state in the nation for infrastructure.
Excuse me?
And Illinois was graded the #1 state in the nation for infrastructure.
Quality of infrastructure or money spent?
No. The quality of Illinois' infrastructure was graded #1 in the whole country.
We're looking at different information, but because I'm an infrastructure guy and I get that. I mean, you can look at all different data. I don't believe that's the case. I mean, are we better than the average? I think we're better than the average, but we're spending more than the average per capita as well. So, and again, it looks to me like forward we're going to be begging for federal money as we continue to have less money to spend in infrastructure. We definitely need more money in infrastructure. I'm telling you, our bridges are not in the best condition now. I mean, our pavements aren't lasting as long as they should, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of work we can do there.
All right, very interesting. Let's take a closer look at this primary race, because there was a recent poll, we mentioned this early on in this segment, that said that you were right now the front runner, both in support of people polled, but also in the money you had raised. Now that poll was taken, I think, on the second day of Richard Irvin jumping into this race. He's the mayor of Aurora, the second largest city in Illinois. If elected, he'd become the first black governor in the land of Lincoln as a Republican. Is he a Republican?
I don't think so. Looking at his history, I don't know him personally, but looking at his history, I wouldn't call him a Republican. That's just me. And maybe more than just me, I think.
The chairman of the Illinois Republican Party says yes, he's a Republican. The House Minority Leader in Illinois, Jim Durkin, says yes, he's a Republican.
These people should be supporting anybody that runs in this race. Any Republican they should be supporting as much as possible. So I don't disagree that they should say that in the positions they're in. As an opponent or a bystander, looking at his record, his voting record, that's not usually a voting record of a Republican if I look at that.
How do you survey the rest of the field? I think a lot of Democrats are focusing their fire right now on Richard Irvin. There's a lot of big money backing Richard Irvin. Some of the Republican establishment seems to have picked him as the likely candidate to win. What do you think of that?
I think establishment will go where the money's at. I think if they're seeing big money behind him, they think that's bigger odds of him winning, I guess, right? But I disagree with that, and I think that number one, money will go there as well as long as he's a good candidate. I think that we're gonna beat him because we're much stronger as a Republican, as a conservative, much stronger than he is. So far, some of the money promised isn't coming about. I don't know if you've looked at that lately.
We haven't seen all their financials yet, and right. I think maybe you're alluding to Ken Griffin, the richest man in the state.
Yeah. So again, we heard.
Have you talked to Ken Griffin?
I've not. No. We've heard numbers of 100 million, 200 million going in that race, even as quick as the primary, right? I don't think that any smart business person like Ken Griffin would make that decision to spend crazy money in a primary before that person actually works hard to show that they can win.
The Irvin campaign launching just about 2 weeks ago. They're already up on the air with TV ads, even before some of their first media interviews were going. Jesse Sullivan, also an entrepreneur running for office, is also up on the air with TV ads as well. It just shows how much money is out there. You've self-funded, not all of your campaign, but a big portion of it. You've had other donors help out and pile in as well, but that's an interesting component. How much money of your personal wealth are you willing to put into bet on yourself to win this race?
Yeah, so I'm a pretty frugal guy. You're not going to see 10 or 20 million extra in my race, in my campaign, I should say. I'm going to invest in my race as I need to. We're going to stay, $500,000 to $1 million ahead in our bank account. I'm going to make sure that anybody invests in my race understands that we're frugal, we're not wasting money. So you won't see as much spent on some of the TV ads and stuff as you're going to see in some of these people that have abundance of dollars to spend in all different directions. I've been an investor in campaigns in the past, and I like to see people that really care about how they're spending their money. Just as if we invest in business, we want to know that entrepreneur is frugal, doing the right things and not just blowing money where they shouldn't. So
I almost have to apologize for the question if I'm being frank. I don't love coverage of campaign finance to say how much is going to spend. It's a little gross, really. It's an indictment of our political system that we have to measure that. But in today's era, a lot of people do look to those 30-second distilled ads to say, do I like this person? Do I not like this person? So I appreciate you coming in this extended format to discuss your vision for the state, because this gives us a chance to really evaluate who you are, what you're about. When you look at recent coverage, our reporting of Darren Bailey, another one of your rivals, he voted 13 times over 17 years to raise property taxes at the local school board. We were just talking about that issue a few moments ago. His answer was, well, local bodies can do that. That's why we did it. I'm summarizing there, but that was basically what he said. Does that answer satisfy you?
No, I mean, I'm a person that's always going to fight higher taxes every chance I get. I want you to manage your money better, right? And if you're just up in taxes with every decision that you make, it's not a good thing. It's not showing that you're looking back at the cost at what you spent and your overhead that you spent to see are you lean and mean. You should be lean and mean every form of government, in my opinion. And if you're raising taxes every time there's an opportunity to, that doesn't sound like lean and mean to me.
What do you make of Darren Bailey?
Darren Bailey, he's a good competitor. I think he's working hard, like I'm working hard. I have a hard time believing that he's going to be as strong in the Chicagoland area.
Why is that?
I just think in the general election, okay, I think because he's got a lot of strength south of I-80, I think he'll do okay in this primary. In the general election, as I travel around the area that I'm very familiar with, the suburbs, and I'm from McHenry County, Lake County, Illinois. People are just uncomfortable with somebody from far southern Illinois that's not in touch with maybe the Chicagoland area, right? So I built my businesses all over the country, but I grew my businesses for the first 20 years in Lake, McHenry, Cook, DuPage County, and I really understand more about the culture there, I think, than somebody from southern Illinois or central Illinois.
You're talking about the battleground of the suburbs, really. They're the collar counties in that area, which there's just more people there. The population density is higher, and I think Democrats and Republicans have agreed the general election will be decided by those swaths of voters largely. You can bank on most of central and southern Illinois tilting red, besides a few pockets in like Urbana and the Metro East area, and you can bank on most of Chicago going blue. It's that purple area that someone's got to win there.
I'm confident that J.B. Pritzker would love to see Darren as the primary winner.
There's some evidence to support that in the way that the Democrats have been talking about this Republican primary campaign. Then there's the elephant in the room. Our viewers have by now noticed your red cap and its logo. It looks familiar.
It looks like my business. My businesses are all red.
You had that before 2016?
Oh yeah, no, my businesses have all been red trucks with white or yellow lettering. So that's kind of
just a coincidence then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it looks a lot like a Trump hat.
Does it really? Well, they're cheap. They're cheap. That's for sure. We try to buy them American.
Made in America?
But this is the cheapest brand you can get if you can get this trucker hat.
I think you know what I'm getting at, though. There are some tensions still in the Republican Party, even on Capitol Hill, even between former President Trump and his former Vice President Mike Pence.
Sure. Over
the bitter feelings of how the 2020 election turned out. Is there a Trump hangover in the Republican Party?
You know what? I'm not measuring that as maybe I should. I'm a person that really believes in fiscal responsibility and great policy to create jobs and opportunity. That's who I've been the last 13, 14 years of my life. As I run my business nationally, I paid attention to regulation that kills businesses, and those are the areas of the country that we probably do more work in, right? Where they allow you to get a permit kind of pretty fast. The regulatory environment is not as stringent as in Illinois, New York, California. I think that the last administration did a good job reducing regulations when they were unneeded or crazy regulations. I think in Illinois we need that. We need to, if we're going to grow business here, we better be a place where business can afford to grow. And I think that's where my strength will lie.
So you like the deregulation of Trump. There are, though, some Republicans who look at the way he also would quickly do away with traditions and norms of government, even still, saying that Mike Pence should have tried to use whatever power he could summon on that January 6th day to decertify, to block the certification of that election. Do you agree with President Trump on that, or do you agree with Mike Pence?
I'm a person that moves on from things when we have a...
This is a critical issue about the democracy of our government. Will you respect the outcome of the election in June and in November?
Absolutely, yes.
What gives you confidence in that?
Well, we're going to have plenty of poll watchers that maybe we didn't have before. We think we're going to have some judges, a lot more judges this time. Then we're going to watch the polls much closer, hopefully, than normal.
And you think that voters should trust the outcome of elections?
I think voters should take ownership in it, and if they do, believe what they get, right? Take ownership in how we run these. We need to make it super easy to vote, in my opinion, and we need to make it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to cheat.
Then through that lens, how do you view that comment and I'm not looking back to 2020 or 2021 even, I'm looking to this week when Donald Trump said Mike Pence should have gone back and used his power to decertify the election. He's saying that now.
Yeah.
As someone who purports himself to be the standard bearer of the Republican Party, you say what?
Yeah, I'm not really paying attention to any of that.
Why can't you refute that? Why can't you say, you know what, that's the wrong idea?
Yeah, because it's not something I'm focused on. I'm focused on Illinois right now, not the federal elections of 2020.
Are you worried about upsetting or insulting people that are voters that are loyal to Donald Trump?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think people that are loyal to Donald Trump are going to like me for who I am and policy, the policy hawk that I'm going to be. They're going to like me for the fact that I understand creating jobs. And hopefully they judge me for my personality and not somebody else's personality.
Look, I understand that. Everybody wants to be judged for themselves.
Absolutely.
But Donald Trump has made the Republican Party, in many ways, the primary fights about him. He has thrown down a gauntlet in that way and said, you're with me or you're against me. And I know that you've said you like some of his policies. But on this issue of saying, I should have been elected even though I lost by 7 million votes, and the vice president should have blocked the proceedings of Congress, even though there was no evidence ever brought forward in any courtroom that would show anything close to overturning the election. Can you not unequivocally say that's inappropriate? That damages our democracy?
His relationship with his vice president is not something I'm concerned with.
It's his relationship with the American people that elected him.
Exactly, but it's not something I'm concerned with. I'm concerned with Illinois. I'm going to stay focused on Illinois because we need to turn the state around.
Okay, we're not going to get an answer much further, I can tell by that. All right, I want to ask you this question too, because I know we unearthed a lot of new ground here today. But I want to go back to a question we asked you many months ago. At the time, you had told some voters in a forum that you were not vaccinated. But from that point until now, many millions of Americans have become vaccinated as they become more safe with the evidence, with the data, to see how safe it was, to see their neighbors were also safe. And the CDC just this week said unvaccinated Americans are 97 times more likely to die with COVID-19 than a vaccinated person. Have you been vaccinated since we last spoke?
I've not been. No.
Why not?
It's my choice. I just don't. I've gotten the COVID approximately a year and a few months ago. I've been tested a few times, and my antibodies are super high. I'm pretty excited about that. So I feel like I'm letting my body work, and I believe that if I was older, if I didn't get it, it might be a different decision for me. But I'm a pro-vaccination person all my life. My kids, myself, my wife, always have gotten vaccinations our whole life. But that doesn't mean that should mean that I must get a new vaccine if I feel like I've got the antibodies. And as you may know, we fought this at the Supreme Court, the 100-employee
the federal mandate.
I was a plaintiff on that. We won, and we won for good reason because it's the right thing.
Part of the judicial decision that came down there parsed two things. Private businesses can be mandated by the state. Federally funded operations like hospitals that get funding,
Health, yeah.
then the federal government does have a say. And they said those mandates were appropriate. Mm-hmm. The Army, another example. There are some 3,000 Army soldiers who, if they refuse to be vaccinated, very soon could be let go. What do you think about that?
I don't agree with it, but I'm concerned. I'm a private business guy.
Vaccine mandates have always been around in the military.
I'm a private business
Even back
guy.
to George Washington.
If I was in the military, I would be more vocal on which way to go with that. But in small business that I'm part of, in our business where we have a few hundred employees, I would have had to fire people that I love. To fire people that are independently very strong against taking a vaccine. I would never want to do that, and therefore we filed a lawsuit against Biden and Ocean, and we won. Right in the private sector. It was the right thing to do, and I'm proud that we were part of that.
I think this is a good way to segue because it gets back to that contract. When you enlist to become a soldier, or when you sign up to be a healthcare worker, you do so to look out for other people, to protect people if you're in the military, to save people if you're in healthcare. And if you do that and also refuse the vaccine, aren't you violating your own contract to protect your fellow soldiers, to protect those patients that are in the hospital? If you carry a greater degree of risk at the time of a viral pandemic, isn't that part of your agreement?
If I read that contract, the contract they signed, I could answer that more professionally. I don't know.
I'm asking a philosophical question.
Yeah. Philosophically, I mean, until the science is completed 10, 15 years from now, what will we find? I mean, maybe we'll find that was the right thing to do. Maybe we'll find that was the wrong thing to do. I think that 2 years into a new vaccine is something that, are we positive we have the results that are going to be complete for the future? I don't know. So I'm confident that for me, anybody that I'm associated with in the private business sector should not have to do this, should not have to take a vaccine if they don't choose to, ethically, religiously, or whatever. And that's what I can control.
Very interesting. You spent a lot of time with us. You've been generous with your time. I appreciate that. But Governor Pritzker got his crack at the state of the state. He said it was strong, reliable, and enduring, or I think I got one of those words wrong, strong something and enduring. I apologize. The state of the state, in your words, is?
It's scary, very scary. You know, when you look at the money that poured in our state, 180 billion is a number I've seen recently.
Let's put an earmark on that, because off camera we were discussing that number.
Yeah.
That's not the money that came to the state of Illinois, but to businesses, to individuals.
So
when you got that stimulus check in your bank account, you're tallying all of that up.
I'm tallying all of it into Illinois, Mark, because when I have businesses that take a stimulus, and we did, okay, that allows those businesses to actually profit when they wouldn't have, right? Because we covered payroll like we were told it would. And without that stimulus, we wouldn't have been profitable. We would have lost a ton of money. We wouldn't have had the taxes. Our taxes wouldn't have been paid into the state.
Somebody was saying it was a good idea.
We wouldn't have profit. Oh, but it's temporary. There's a problem, right? It's a temporary stimulus.
Well, hopefully COVID is temporary too.
Well, hopefully, but we've ruined a lot
if
of our.
enough people get vaccinated.
We've ruined a lot of our business community because of this. We've got still, you know, over 5% unemployment compared to our surrounding states at 2.5, 2.7, whatever they are, right? I think Indiana's 2.7%. That's like 130,000 jobs still that we have out of play, out of work compared to our neighbor when we look at our population, right? That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing that we've got this much unemployment cost and this much less in supply chain productivity because of it. So I mean, I look at all these things and say, hey, there's like, I saw a number of 14 billion to 30 billion that have poured into our
jobs number is
state
improving.
and local, right?
The jobs number is improving. It's not great comparatively to the rest of the states, but it's improving. It's
bottom 10 of the country, though, is not good. I mean, if we could be, again.
But you're saying scary. You think people should be scared? I mean, things are improving. COVID deaths are declining. Jobs are on the way up. The economy is growing. Corporate profits are at record highs since 1950s. And you think that's a scary picture?
What's scary? It's scary for Illinois because, we shouldn't be at 5.3% or 5.4% unemployment and when we've taken all the stimulus money in. So there should be people back to work that aren't, in my opinion, and that's because we've hurt families with their kids not being in school all this time. We've hurt small business like no other state a couple other states in the country. I would say we're one of the worst as far as how we treated winners and losers in business and small business.
Yeah. I hear you. I wonder what the solution is there, though. Could employers offer those workers a better bargain?
The employers are going broke. In many of the small businesses anyway. So
I'm having a hard time computing.
Yeah.
You're saying. So it's a fact that corporate profits are at record highs since 1950, but corporations are going broke. Which is it?
Small businesses. So small businesses. So the little S corps. Okay, you want to call them corporations. 1, 2, 10 employees, right? 20 employees. It's a little different compared to.
What's the cause of that?
What's the cause of that? I mean, they can't compete when you take a restaurant and you tell them that everybody that comes in must have a Vax card and 40, 50.
That's in Chicago. That's the city of Chicago only right now.
No, that's I'm in my business in Schaumburg, Illinois. It's all the restaurants in Schaumburg, Illinois, all of Cook County now, right?
Well, Cook County, you're right. Cook County. So there's been some areas that haven't enforced that as much. There's also been people, friends of mine, that walk into bars and restaurants in Chicago and have nobody pester them or ask them a question. So it's not really fully enforced.
Oh boy, I'm not seeing a lot of that. Because in where I'm at in Schaumburg, Illinois, and Chicago, I'm in Chicago periodically as well. These businesses are 40, 50, 60% under where they were pre-COVID still, all right, because of that. I mean, they're actually coming back, and then this hit them because many people aren't going to go to those restaurants if they have to have a card. So either way, I think we're damaging business continually in Illinois, and our surrounding states are not. So guess what? They're Indiana, Wisconsin. They're getting all our small businesses. I mean, I've got dozens of friends that are leaving our state, and I'm upset about it. Right? I want them to stay here. This is a great state. But we got to make sure they're competitive. We got to make sure that we can help keep them in business.
What do you make of Governor Pritzker's comment when he said, you know what, Republicans who are cynics, in his words, badmouth the state and say, well, everyone's leaving, this place sucks. He basically says that, he used the phrase, those people are orbiting Illinois politics, spelunking for misery, which was an interesting phrase. But he's basically saying, why down talk and trash talk the state where you live all the time?
Yeah, so I think it's people like myself who don't want to leave that are I love the state and I'm rooted in the state. It's people like me that are seeing our friends leave saying, we need help, we need relief, we need to make sure that we create a community where people want to be again. And so I think it is terrible. I can't stand the negativity myself, but I find myself being negative more often than ever, and I'm a very positive person.
Should all 5 candidates for governor in the Republican primary get on the debate stage and debate?
Absolutely, yes.
How many times?
Are you going to get that? Are you going to get that going?
I am not prepared to
You'd
disclose
be great
any
at that.
details at this time.
You'd be great.
We have your endorsement. That's one of 5.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll take that as a good review of this interview then in that case. I'd be happy to do that, by the way.
That'd be fun.
We'd be honored to be a part of that. I think that these debates are an important part of bringing voters along for this discussion as they choose who should lead our state. So if I had to get you to, you said scary was the state of Illinois, but give me a prediction about your campaign. As you head toward June, how do you stand out from the rest of the crowd?
So as we head towards June, I got to outwork everybody. I mean, I'm a person that really believes in hard work. Simply, if you work harder than your competition, good luck happens, right? Good things happen. So
The harder you work, the luckier you get.
That's exactly right. So either way, no, for me, I like to work hard, and I'm going to outwork my competitors. I got to outwork them in Southern Illinois, down here, and in Central Illinois. I got to outwork them in Chicagoland area, and we're going to win.
All right, he's Gary Rabine, the current front runner for governor. We'll see how long that lasts, if he can keep that momentum going. We have invited all of his rival candidates to join us on this program or to speak with us as well, and we hope that they will do that over the course of this primary campaign. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
When we come back, the state's comptroller, Susana Mendoza, runs the state's checkbook. She will go through and give her review, not only of Governor Pritzker's budget address, but why she thinks the state might be in for another credit upgrade in the near term. That's next.